Okay, so we talking about Filecoin, and initially we did touch on IPLD. So I want to dive into that a little bit today. IPLD is their, it's called Interplanetary Linked Data. It's basically a way of linking all kinds of data together throughout a distributed network. So in some sense, it reminds me of almost like a graph database, because everything is, you're linking different pieces of data together. In some ways, that's similar to what you would do in, just a regular program. For example, if you think of a relational database, you'd link stuff together. You would design, let's say you have people and addresses, right? You would create a table with the people information and have a person ID, and then you'd create a table with the address information, and there in that would be, each address would be linked to a person. And of course you can have maybe an address ID, and then have a table that links the person ID to an address ID, because you can have multiple persons at an address and things of that nature. Often you may do something like, just for each address have a person, person ID and then their address. That's not uncommon either. So in some ways it's similar. Now, because remember, we're dealing with a blockchain, and everything that has to be moved around involves resources, gas, and you can do things. So let's look at this. If you have a hash, you can give and link to something. You can pass the hash, and you think of hashes as URLs. Just like your favorite websites have a URL, a hash is in essence a URL for some hunk of data. So you have different formats of data, and you have different programming languages, and we have different because these languages have different basic types that they are used to represent data in memory. Let's see, what's it saying here? Now, with multi-hash, a single identifier can get us to any set of binary data, so that's all blocks. And obviously, we have blockchains, that's where you can store blocks. That's data. We've got that covered, but now we need to go to the data structures. So basically, okay, we have different formats, and we also need to think about programming languages. So you have different ways of representing this data. It is how you go from data to data structures. So links, they call the CID. It's sort of a hash that tells us the format, and it's standard, so that's important. Let's see. So a CID, now we're going to get into this a little bit later on. A CID is interesting because there's a binary type that is not part of JSON. So certain when you're working with this, when you're encoding stuff that's using the CID, you cannot use JSON encoding. JSON, of course, is a very popular, very common way of passing data along in the internet now. It's sort of gotten much more popular than XML. XML's sort of the old way. JSON is what typically is used today, but the CIDs are not. JSON does not support CIDs, and that's going to become important. So they use it. So since everything uses a CID, it doesn't matter what, and since that's consistent, it doesn't matter what format the data is, whether you're using Rust or how, if you're using, Go or JavaScript or whatever it is. It just needs to know the CID. And they have a bunch of information on this. So I think what we're let's have a quick look at this. So you have data structures, and let's say a typical person. Their name, their GitHub, and their Twitter. And this looks like something you can see in any programming language. And now you want to relate this fellow with other people. So here is, this is cool. They let you. So this is how you're defining it. You define an array. It looks like the people, and you index it into, you push it. Index is a method, so you're pushing the person into in essence, into this array. And that's how so this fellow's linked to Earth, these two are linked to Pluto, and the galaxy contains Earth and Pluto. And that's our graph of the galaxy. So how you arrive at the information is often important and not important than the information. So now we got this data, and we somehow have to encode it for the internet. For the blockchain. So here's the library for blocks in this IPLD. Here's our person, right, that we defined. We encode him in JSON, and that's how this represented. Then, and that creates a block. The block gets a CID, which again is that unique identifier, and you can print that out. You can see this big, huge thing. Now, because that's a common representation. Now, this is a unique identifier, and what this says is, if I have this identifier, this JSON matches it, so it's sort of the address. And the address doesn't care what you're storing. It's like, think about your mailbox, right? You have a unique address. And your mail carrier puts it in your mail in the box. It doesn't care if it's a letter, if it's a media, what it is. It's that address. No, it's not. I think that analogy is not quite working. Let's say you have a vault with a unique number, and that number will say, I want the contents of what's in that vault, in that, like you're storing precious metals, for example. There's some unique account, some unique number, and it knows if I give you this number, I'm going to pull out these precious metals, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter exactly what it is, it just knows how to get it. That's what the CID is. So now this is where it gets interesting here. So you create these people, create person, and all it is encoding them into JSON. So now you have these people in JSON, and you create your galaxy. So you're saying Americans contain these. So now that you have the galaxy and you want to create your block, you're not going to be using JSON, you're going to be using this new thing, DAG subor, because that allows the additional binary that the CID requires. So you encode it, and then you can get the CID, and you can print that. So yeah, we can't use JSON. Remember, CID isn't something that can be included in JSON. And now you've got this block that represents your galaxy. And once you have the CID, you can retrieve the block, and you can decode it using, again, DAG subor, and then decode each of these items in JSON. So can be coded, so it doesn't really matter. There are different ones that you can use, and when you just look, you got these hashes of the people, and you can unencode them and get your data back. So this is kind of an overview of IPLD. Next time, oh, and here's one other thing, you can see it here in, yeah, they haven't gotten to Rust yet, or Go, so all their examples are in JavaScript right now. So next time we're going to actually look at some JavaScript code. That was the easiest. I looked at some of their examples. That's easiest to view. So hopefully this explains what this mysterious IPLD is and the CID. It's really, if you're familiar with databases, it's really not that much different. It's encoding. It's just knowing how to encode stuff. So anyway, hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, please give a like, and please subscribe. Please ring the bell to get notifications. Please share it with your friends who might be interested. And I know this is this is a little bit technical. So if you have questions, please feel free to put something in the comments, and I will, try to answer it to the best of my ability. But it kind of sounds scary, IPLD is whole new, but no, it's really kind of straightforward if you've been working with databases and data structures. It is not that much different. So anyway, hopefully this has been helpful, and I will speak to you next time.